Hi, guys. All right. So, we're Brandon and Courtney Miracle. If you don't know who we are, we're just talking about the shenanigans that happened. And he was making fun of me, so I just whacked him in the head. So, hello.
Catch that on tape.
Happy Wednesday.
Good lawyer.
I have my eyelashes back today. All right, guys. When you jump on, give us a hello. Give us a hi. We're going to chat some more nutrition. So, we told you guys we're going to focus on the nourishment part. Nourishment part of Shift this week. Shh. Brandon's tired. It's been a long week. So for those of you who are bored, can you just send some our way? So we're going to focus on the nourishment piece this week. So today we want to talk about what's going on the outside, what's going on the inside, and kind of bridge that gap. He's really tired. He's tired. He's delirious. So I'm going to give you guys a backstory. So obviously we've owned a gym for 10 years. We spent a lot of time focusing on nourishment with people. And although we often saw some good results, there were kind of roadblocks that usually showed up for people, and then there was always kind of a limiter that stopped people, and it was often they couldn't figure out why, right? And so what we know to be true now is that we've worked with people just on nourishment. We've worked with people on nourishment movement. I've worked with people just strictly on the feeling side of food and body. And the Shift Project came to be because what we realized is you can't do one or two parts without doing all 5 parts, right? Like you have to have all. Why are you laughing at me?
Because you got it.
Because I got it. It was 4 pieces forever.
And we always add. If you don't know us, we're always adding.
Yeah. So without doing all 5 pieces, you're never really going to get to the best energy, to the best, just to the best version of you if you're not doing all the pieces, right? And so we're focusing today on the nourishment side because when I worked with my women, I did a program called Flow, and we spent 4 months really diving into the emotional side of food, what was going on, inner child, like all the really deep parts. We pulled all the layers back. They had amazing results. They all were like so much happier, so much lighter, so much freer. But at the end of that, it was like, well, but I'm still not totally sure how to eat, right? Because they knew how to diet and they knew how to not diet, right? And so what we realized is you really have to recreate a relationship with food and with your body. And what most of the world is still stuck in is like, we're counting macros or we're counting calories, and we're thinking that like the amount is what really matters, and that's just not true. Like what actually matters is what's going on inside of your body with all of your different systems and your hormones, and there's so much more to it. Hi guys. There's so much more to it than like just what you put in, right? And I fought this battle with my disordered eating habits forever of like, okay, well if I can just have less calories, it should work, and it never did. But what I didn't understand was like the brain gut axis and the hormonal system and all of that stuff. And we're just going to totally geek out with you guys on this. That's not that's his world. I get it, but I don't want to explain it to you guys. So like when you understand that there's so much more to it, you're going to have this like, oh, well, maybe that's why this has never worked for me, because even though I thought I was doing the right things and I was trying, there was so much disorder going on inside my physical being as well as my emotional being that it never worked, and you can never stick to it, and you can never actually feel the way that you want to feel. Okay, that's the intro.
Good. Awesome. So, but this always gets me kind of pumped up on here, because I think
we like to geek out.
For a lot of this, the goal here is to help bridge the gap. And I think for a lot of you guys that have been following our journey, and the reason why we've been like 20 episodes deep into this, and we haven't really dived into food, is because of this. Is because for so much of, yet again, we come from the exercise and the fitness and wellness environment. And what most people do that wear our hat is, oh, okay, you have this goal, I'm going to give you this nutrition plan, or I'm going to give you this diet to follow, right? And like we did that for years. Like I will fully own that. I mean, I went to school for it. She did that forever, right? Like when I first met her, like Courtney could pronounce like down to like every single calorie of anything and everything. And those that know her like prior to 10 years ago would probably validate that even more than I would.
Not pronounced, but I was like a walking calorie counter.
Yes,
I literally had a buddy tell me he was going to kick me out of my own truck if I said the word calorie one more time. So it was an unhealthy way, but I knew every single calorie, and I counted every single calorie like every night in bed or every night in my head before I went to bed. Not a great thing, right? And it didn't work, right? So that's the biggest thing. It did not work.
And so with that, you guys, it's understanding like the goal here is to help you bridge the gap from all the emotional stuff we've been talking about, all the feeling, all the emotional, all the stories, all the identities, all those things, and then also put into the practical application of actually nourishing your body. Okay. And so with that being said, yet again, Courtney touched on that. I won't dive into it more on that, but it's being able to coming from a place of understanding and actually come from a place of practical application. Okay, now what most people do, okay, the best way, I'm not going to try to, I love this stuff, but I'm going to try to explain this in the best layman's terms that I can. And I love analogies and kind of like stories, and that's the best way I learn. So I'm going to try to share that with you. So the best way that I kind of think about this is what most people tend to do is, say your body is like a race car, right? Like it's a V12 high performance engine. And what most people tend to do when they walk in the door and to see us typically is like, oh, I want to get these results, right? Like I want to lose weight. I want to look good in my wedding. I want to run a marathon. I want to perform in a strongman competition. I want to be the world's fittest human being, whatever it may have more energy, right? Like they want these things. And so the expectation when they walk through our door is, oh, you're going to give me this macro program, or you're going to give me this diet, or you're going to tell me to go keto, you're going to tell me to go paleo, or whatever, all these other things that tend to run down mainstream for us, right? And so what tends to do is, so by doing that, by doing whether it's keto, paleo, intermittent fasting, all these things, what I'm doing there is I'm manipulating your fuel system, okay? I'm manipulating the gas that's getting put into your gas tank, all right? But the problem there is like, yeah, your engine, like, okay, if you're a V6 and all of a sudden you get, high performance gas in there, you're probably going to run better, right? But the problem there is the gas tank isn't necessarily the issue. Your fuel system, all that's not necessarily the issue. The issue there is the computer, right? Like, especially nowadays, our cars are run by computer systems. What we need to do is change the computer system so now that really performs at a high performance. So then it starts to distribute the gas better. It starts revving your engine better. It starts performing at a higher efficiency. It starts becoming better fuel economically, right? Like I could put in all the best gas in the world. I can manipulate the fuel, but if my fuel management system, the computer, the CPU that's distributing the gas and telling things how to function, i.e. your hormones, your central nervous system. I'm going to get in that in a second. But essentially, that's what the CPU is. That's your hormones. That's your distribution of how things function, how your body manages its energy, how it interprets things. That's what's really being run. And so what most people do is because they follow a diet, they follow something that their friend did, they follow something that some guru gave them, all of a sudden they may manipulate your fuel system, i.e. calories or macros or whatever. But if your fuel management system, what I'm talking about is your nervous system, your hormone system isn't functioning properly, and you're having other things going on emotionally, physically, just throwing, mentally, you're going to throw your system out of whack. So it doesn't matter what your calorie in, calorie out, your macro count, all the other things that you're manipulating on there are going to do, because sooner or later that's going to come, right? Like, I mean, you can do anything for a short amount of time, right? Like I know for some, like, well, why did my friend do this diet and they lost, 20 pounds in the first 3 weeks? Well, you can do anything for a short amount of time and you're going to see change, right? Like, what was that, 6 years ago? The Twinkie diet came out, right? Like somebody ate literally Twinkies for an entire month and their cholesterol level went down, they lost weight. The problem is with that, you guys, it's not sustainable. Like, right? Like I promise that person may have saw something as a result for 30 days, but I would almost guarantee that if they did that for the entirety of a year, they would probably see way worse adverse effects, right? Like, I don't think that takes too much knowledge to like understand that eating Twinkies is probably not the best thing for you, right? So by manipulating that, you will see change for a short amount, right? Like why most people see weight loss in the first like 2 or 3 weeks on a ketogenic diet is because you're removing a lot of carbohydrates, which are 3-part water, right? Like, so you're removing a lot of water weight from your body. So people see that as like, oh, you're losing weight. That must mean that diet worked. Well, no, you're just changing essentially your distribution and you're losing that, but it's not really sustainable for a long run on there. Okay. So when we're talking about everything meshing together, your external and your internal environment. Okay, what we're talking about. So that's why when we're talking about food and calories and macros and everything else, your systems, and this is the reason why we came up with the Shift Project, is understanding that every system, everything in our body, everything in our world talks and communicates to each other. Right? Like my external environment talks to my internal environment, which tells and organizes how things are corresponded. Okay. Now what that is on a nourishment standpoint, on a functionality standpoint of how or if you're wanting to lose weight and whether or not that's coming to fruition, whether or not you want to perform, whether or not you're crashing in the afternoon, whether or not you're snappy at your kids. There's a portion of your brain called your HPA axis, okay? It's your hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, okay? Now, there's a lot more to this, okay? Now, this is just very base level, okay? But now what this section is, it's your hypothalamus and your pituitary. Now, that's the section of your body where that connects essentially your external environment, your nervous system, to your internal environment, your endocrine system, okay? Now, when you eat, all right, there are certain reactions that happen within your body, right? Like just putting food in your mouth, if it's sweet and sensory and everything else, your body starts to communicate and triggers certain hormonal responses in preparation for that food. It goes down your stomach, gets digested through there via acidity and all those things, gets transitioned to your liver and goes into your intestines where it's then distributed out further from there. Well, if there's problems there, that's where at a hormone basis, that's where all the signals from your gut starts to distribute of sending hormones based off of the things that you're ingesting and digesting. Well, if there's a sensory problem between my external environment and my internal environment, there's going to be a problem with that distribution center, and there's going to be a problem with the hormones that are being sent. All right. So I can follow a macronutrient basis, but in times like this, like that's the reason why we've been spending so much time about talking about our external environment and our feelings and our emotions, is because my external environment, my nervous system that senses all these things, talks and communicates to my internal environment, and my hypothalamus controls my blood, or controls my temperature, controls my blood volume, controls sexual function, controls a lot of other very important, controls my metabolism. Just kind of following along the weight loss portion of things. But yet again, that's the portion of my body, my brain, that controls those things. That communicates to my thyroid, right? Like if you're having cortisol problems, you're having those things. Yet again, that connects to my adrenal system, my adrenal glands, which is controls my fight or flight system, which controls my cortisol levels, which which automatically is going to control my metabolism, because of my cortisol levels could be affected, which in turn is also going to affect my insulin sensitivity. So there's kind of a lot of domino effects by all these things that are going on, without even talking about the calories and the macronutrients, what you're putting into your body. This is just based off of what's happening externally to you and what you're interpreting. So that's why it's more important, you guys, of your perceived stress, right? Like I'm not even talking about this stress, but your perceived stress and your stress load, right? Like even me talking to the camera and me getting the frequency from the electrical device, that my body's interpreting that. My nervous system senses that device, so that's extra stress, right? Like if you're sitting in front of the TV more, if you're on the phone more, if you're watching the news, if you're arguing with your spouse, if you're irritable with your kids, if you're taking on more time at work, if you're in a time of uncertainty, all these things are external stress on there. And so the communication between your internal and your external environment are going to affect how your nourishment is actually being distributed within your system. So that's why it's vital to not just think about the gas that you're putting in your gas tank, but it's more important to think about what is the computer system that's running that system and how is it functioning, so it can properly distribute the nourishment and the fuel that you're trying to distribute to the proper cells.
So if they're, that was big, you guys. So that's a lot of science. But the cool thing about this is that, like, if you feel like in your life, like you've been stuck, you can't get your body to change, you can't get your body to respond, like you're like, I've tried everything, I've done everything. When you start to fix this stuff, this is where it changes. And I know I had that for me, like my story, and like I was never a big person, but for the amount of like watching my calories and exercise and all of that stuff I was doing, my body never responded. And now, since we've done this and we actually understand the science behind it, like I know I can manipulate things and my body will respond.
Well,
right?
how much stress were you putting yourself under when you were constantly counting?
Oh, it's
right? Like a
awful.
lot of you guys, how many times have you gone through some sort of restricted diet? Because that's why we don't use the word diet, because diet and restriction are kind of coupled together. But how many for you guys, when you were going through that, I mean, I did it. I did for years, right? Like I counted specifically down to the 1 gram of whatever I was doing so I would hit my macro count, right? Like, yes, I saw results, but at the same time, the amount of stress that went through my day-to-day operation of how many calories am I getting? Oh no, can I eat that? God forbid I eat that and all of a sudden I'm gonna have to punish myself and work out for the next 2 hours because I had a piece of chocolate cake for my kid's birthday, right?
Yeah.
Like how much stress were you going
the amount of stress there, and like, I mean, I'll joke about this. I'm like, I don't actually know how I got anything done in my life because all I was ever thinking about was like calories. Was I good or bad? How to shift this? How to have more rules? How to like, and so I was in so much stress, and I was also in a very big state of lack, right? And we could talk about the spiritual side of like living in the energy of lack. But like when you start to realize that all of this stuff affects it, and it's like, it didn't matter if I had the perfect nutrition, my system was super jacked up. I mean, I went from like anorexia to bulimia to like, I screwed up that whole system very badly, and it didn't matter what I did until I fixed that. So what we want you guys to understand is like, if you feel like you've tried everything and like it doesn't work or it's not maintainable or the experience is terrible, there's a better way to do this and we can teach you guys. So, okay, so
I'm sorry, but and it's also not your fault.
Right.
Because I would imagine for a lot of you guys, you've probably never been introduced to this by anyone that wears our hat. Right? Like most people that wear our hat, like, sweet, you got that? Let's get you on a nutrition plan. I got this magic system. It rains unicorns and rainbows and everything else. It will fix everything, right? Like maybe it will work for 30 days, but is it sustainable, right?
Right. Sorry, and is it going to fix it? So my question is like, if you could give them the top 2 things they could do to help work on this, what would that be?
Honestly, it'd be first thing is chew your food. Find food that you actually have to eat. Right, like something very, very simple. Is just sit down and eat your food. Right, like if you're having to, there's a full system that comes through with you actually putting food in your mouth, chewing it, digesting, and then it gets distributed out from there. Right, like there's a lot there. By simply just chewing your food will automatically bring about different responses in your body because the texture of the food, the colors of the food, the food itself will get distributed better through there. Because the other aspect of this, you guys, is there's actually communication from your gut to your brain. Like it literally is a circular fashion. So for a lot of you guys, if you're feeling lethargic, if you're feeling less cognitive function, if you're feeling, i.e. brain fog, if you're feeling irritable, if you're feeling depressed, if you're feeling like you can't sleep at night, you probably have inflammation of the gut. Right? Like those are usually pretty telltale signs of what's going on from your gut to your brain, because about 80% travels from your vagus nerve up to your brain. So what's going on to your gut goes straight to your brain, and about 20% goes back down to your gut. And so that's why it's a system portion of this. Yet again, everything talks to each other. So first off, I would start with eating actual food. All right. The next part on there, you guys, would be what we try to do is we've done the restricted thing. It doesn't work. All right. For long term. Okay. It doesn't work for long term. I'd say if you can, you set yourself a goal to eat at least a total of 6 cups of fruits or vegetables a day. A combined total between those 2 things, right? So start off eating real food, chew your food, and the next part is throughout your day, make it a goal to shoot for 6 cups of fruits and vegetables combined throughout your total day, right? Like not even going into like you need to remove everything you've been doing, you need to fast, you need to do all the things. Start with that, you guys, and if you do those 2 things, I would imagine you'll probably feel better and you'll probably start functioning at a different state as well.
Yeah, and what I love about that, because obviously, like, I'm very big on the emotional side and, like, our relationship with food in our body, and I know this was true for me, like, when I got to say, oh, I get to focus on how much I can have, like how many vegetables can I eat, how much fruit and vegetables can I eat. The other stuff that I was like filling because I was hungry started to sort of fall away. And so I love on an emotional level of it's like, how much good food can I have? I literally still to this day, you guys, every day when I get up, I'm like, what is the most nourished, energetic of me version of me feel like? And what do I need to do to get in that state, right? And when you're doing that, you're coming from a place of abundance and you're coming from a place of love and you're coming from a place of truly like optimizing who you are, not restricting so you can be some different version, some skinnier version of yourself. Like the energetics behind that are so different. And on the physical side, you're going to feel better. You're going to have less information. You're going to be less bloated. Like everything starts to work better. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is easy. I mean, I remember when my metabolism changed and I was like, wow, this is crazy. Like this is actually easy. Something that I thought was like impossible my entire life became easy because I fixed the system and I fixed the emotions around the process.
Well, I mean, what feels better to you? Like if I was going to ask you, okay, when you get to say, well, I get to have these, right? Like I get to have X amount, I get to shoot for having an abundance of fruits and vegetables, right? Like I'm not, yet again, I've had the argument and I've had the conversation with a lot of people like, well, I'm not supposed to eat fruit. How many processed foods are you eating right now? Like don't argue the semantics of what you're going on, right? Like fruits and vegetables are good for you, right? Like there's too much sugar in fruit. Well, no, we're not talking about processed. We're not talking about refined sugar. We're not talking about those kind of things. Like fruits and vegetables are good for you, right? But when I ask you, like, when you get to say, oh, I get to have that versus like, oh, I don't get to have that, right? Like the two visceral feelings I know when I say those two things, like, don't tell me what to do. I'll go like smash that entire cake right now, right? Like, I don't care what my goals are, but nobody tells me what to do. I tell myself what to do as opposed to like, oh, I get to go have those things, like, right? Like that probably feels a lot better. And so that's the state, that's the position that we like to come from on this, you guys, is what can you add, not subtract and take away to your life that allows you to experience more abundance, more energy, and more fulfillment in the long run. And not to mention, the reason why we come about this, you guys, is because for most people, when they get told they can't do anything, for most of us, yet again, we're talking about the 6 human needs around food. Usually when I tell you can't have something, that's probably taking away one of your needs, which sooner or later you're going to come back and try to fill somewhere else.
Right. And I mean, we'll talk about this tomorrow. We'll talk about rules and boundaries tomorrow. But like dieting leads to binging. It just does. Like that is a thing. It is proven. So like when we can get out of that feeling of restriction and lack, then we don't have to rebound the other way. Okay. Good for today. I think that was awesome. So hopefully that helped you guys. We'll give you guys some more tips. We do have a 10-day challenge, which it's not a challenge. It's a 10-day reset. I hate that word and it still comes out of my mouth. We have a 10-day reset. We're actually going to lengthen it because 10 days, we give you all of this stuff. We give you the emotional stuff. We give you the actual, the actual physical reset with what foods, are going to actually help reset the system. It's really hard. The actual nutrition part is 10 days. The rest of it, we actually want you to lengthen out to about 30 days because it takes that long to start to shift the other side, the feeling, the mindset, that kind of stuff. So it's packed full of information. We've got it discounted right now to $47.
Well, so basically think of everything we've been talking about for the last 20 something days, put into a 10-day actual sequential out format for you to go through. Right, like we've been talking about a lot of different things, but we packaged it within that 10 days for you to go through at your own pace, right? Like when you get into it, you get access to it forever. So you get the whole process, but the first 10 days, you guys, really allows you to dive into the nourishment, get into a more of an understanding, create a different relationship with the food, get a more understanding of like, oh, I don't feel good when I have that, right? Oh, you know what? I enjoy that. And this is the result because of whatever it may be. Not coming from a place of bad, but it's all packaged within that 10 days.
Yeah. So if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling frustrated, if a lot of what we're saying, you're like, oh, that's good, but I don't know how to apply it, reach out. I'll give you the link to that. It's amazing. We've had hundreds of people go through it, and it's just been amazing. So we love you guys. We appreciate you. We hope you're rocking your Wednesday, and we'll be back for another episode tomorrow.
Later, y'all.